In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at all three of our major models. The European model, we'll be taking a look at these storms that are upcoming, the total precipitation, the total snowfall, and then we'll dive right into the GFS and Canadian models kind of to compare. And then we'll close things out with the temperature anomalies. Again, I've talked to you guys about this before, but we are getting a new computer for the channel, and that's going to be happening around the 10th. So there's a few more days to go of this format, and then hopefully I'll be expanding a lot on this, and hopefully new great things to come for the channel. So thank you for bearing with me here. We can see that we're in a bit of a quieter pattern. We do have this kind of nor'easter storm that we've been talking about, but it is going to just basically move offshore. It is going to just make its way out right here. There is a couple of bands that make their way onshore here for Virginia, North Carolina, perhaps the Delmarva as well there. But that basically quickly comes to an end. That moves out, and then after all this cold is said and done, we're going to be left with a much warmer pattern here in the east, as you can see, where we have kind of this activity going on, which means this air down here is instead over here. So it moves much further north. So we have kind of like a Gulf air mass overhead. We see this low develop here over Missouri, Iowa, Illinois here. And this is going to have that kind of cold front, warm front dynamic. And that is going to bring this warm sector here with the swinging cold underneath. We've talked about this time and time again, but you can really anticipate some severe weather for those Gulf states. And eventually, I think even the southeast here. I've been kind of eyeballing this as well, kind of as we approach the 9th into the 10th time frame. We do see another low form here. We have a lot of energy coming in from the Gulf here, and we have a lot of Gulf kind of energy coming in from these more northern areas here, and this kind of leads towards development in the mid-Atlantic or southeast areas there for the 11th into the 12th. And look at this, guys. We see this form, and it quickly swings just like this, and we see cold air moving in, and this brings a massive snowstorm on this particular European model run here, Saturday the 11th. Look at this, a low forming just south of Massachusetts. The cold air is damming southward here just to the west of this low because we have a cold front right here that has come through. And this allows for, as you can see, a very major trough in the east. And we can see massive amounts of snowfall for Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all of New England as well. So we have a 991 millibar low pressure center there, right offshore of Martha's Vineyard there and Nantucket, and that is prime position for a nor'easter like this. And we get as low as 987 here things are kind of closing out here for New England. So we see very heavy snowfall here for Maine and New Hampshire as things are lingering on for the 12th. And then things will be all said and done. And look at what we're kind of left with here at the end. A very warm pattern out west and actually a pretty decent trough here in the east as some cold air is getting sent back eastward. So if you ask me, February is looking a lot more promising already than January ever did. January was kind of a failure from the start. And this is kind of what we're left with after a major snowstorm here. So we'll take it with a grain of salt. This is obviously very different than what we've seen all winter time long. So we're going to kind of be cautious about this. But if we see this trending in more and more and more, I definitely think this does have some potential and it is within 240 hours. It's probably around 7 days out. So we have some time, but it is fairly close to happening, 6 or 7 days away to where we can start really, really paying attention to this. So total precipitation, we can see again, I've been talking about this. We are going to see a pickup in activity here for the Northwest where we are going to see some of this activity moving in. But we see that there are storms rising up across the Midwest and even into the Southeast still as we get these nor'easters here. And we can tell there's going to be a lot of coastal activity because we have tons of precipitation here in the Atlantic there offshore of the East Coast. Certainly a lot of activity out there. Now the total snowfall here and we can see there's just so much here. I want to kind of draw this in a more loose fashion so we can see all of these areas. Anywhere in the grays here is a dusting, if anything. Blues 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purple 6 to 10. Pinks 10 to 20. And your pastel blues 20 to 35 inches. And pastel pinks, like we see out here out west, is going to be 35 inches plus. I want to just zoom us into the northeast quickly because I want to get us a good look at this. We can see that there is just tons and tons of snowfall, 10 inches plus in all of these pink areas here, which is going to be for everywhere in this pocket here, as you can see. So a very wide swath of these very heavy amounts of snowfall. We can even see 20 inches plus, perhaps 15 to 20 inches for these areas in here, just like this. So a very heavy swath throughout New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maine, especially there where we get extremely heavy snowfall. This would obviously be the most major snowfall event we've seen all winter long. And not even just that, it would be just very major in general. So this is definitely a very, very interesting development here on the model so far that we've seen. And as we just move on to our GFS model, I want to see if it's here as well. We're going to be watching that particular time frame, and we do see a bit of a smaller snowstorm starting out here. Not a solid look, but around the 9th, 10th time frame there. And then as we approach the 11th here, we see some coastal development here with certainly a lot of cold air here across the east, so plenty of cold air. We do see snowfall throughout all of these areas here. Does not look as intense as that European model, but we do obviously get a lot of development here and some very heavy snowfall with that also. And that eventually moves up and away. Certainly a lot less major than what we saw in that European model, but it is still a more major solution in general. Again, for comparison from what we've seen all winter long. Now we do close things out on the European or the Canadian model here, better yet, with warmer air in the east. So we close things out this way, and we see some digging cold air with snowfall out west. So we kind of get back into that southeast ridge, and then that very, very strong trough and snowfall out west there. Now I want to see also what the Canadian model here is showing. So we're going to just walk our way through this. Um, and I have not seen this one yet. I can see here that on the kind of 10th time frame here, we have this cold front, warm front dynamic with the low in between here. And this would certainly bring a warm sector again out ahead of it and severe weather potentially on this back end. So we would be watching for severe weather for these areas in particular. There Thursday into Friday, the 9th into the 10th. More storminess following that for the day on the 10th. That's going to be Friday here along the east. So certainly a lot of activity. But around the 12th, as you can see, we don't really get a nor'easter because we have this low here, and we also have a secondary low here. And this kind of messes the whole thing up where we get some snowfall here for these areas, but we would need this energy to all transfer offshore and have just one really strong low here so that damming process can work its way down here. When we have this primary low here, actually what's happening is the opposite. We're seeing kind of this warm air being encouraged on the eastern end. So that's why you see a flow of things kind of northward like this, where the warm air is being pulled up the coast and the damming is actually happening back here. That's why we're seeing snowfall very far south on the western end, because you know your lows are always working in your counterclockwise motion, just like this. So that is what we are seeing at this point from this Canadian model. A little bit of a Debbie Downer there, but I will say here, as we approach the 14th, the very end of this model run, I see that there is a lot more cold air on the way, according to this Canadian model. So far, the Canadian and the European model show a lot of cold air over the next 10 days and actually have a very solid look, both of them respectively, at the end of the model runs here for very cold air. So certainly something to potentially look forward to, some colder times ahead. And that would also, obviously, with colder air, mean snowfall opportunities. So even if this one doesn't pan out, which it does look like a solid signal here for the kind of 10th, 11th, 12th time frame for the Northeast, it does look like there is going to be potential later on as well. Now, as we take a look at this European ensemble model, we can see this cold air we've been calling for weeks now. We get warm air eventually moving in, so all the way up, and that's gonna be around the 8th, so midweek next week, and this kind of stays around until that, again, 10th, 11th, 12th time frame when we do get some colder air here in the east, and this is right around when we would have a low developing offshore, and that is when we would get potential snowfall. That cold only sticks around so long, and already by the 14th, we do have warmer air in general, and a very negative PNA out here, so a trough and then a bit of a ridge, obviously, for most of the eastern and the central United States that is. And we can see that by the time we're approaching the 20th, this will be the 19th particularly, we do see more and more cold air making its way into the east, but it's still dipping into the west. This is an ensemble model, which means that we are going to get some kind of weird things happening here as there is multiple members at play and they're all having different opinions. So once you get 360 hours out like this shows, first off, take it with a grain of salt. But second off, you have all those different members kind of heading in different directions with things, and that is why you get some of this confusion here from the models, where you get just differences in what they're calling for, and that's why you get kind of a negative P&A look with cold in the east, which is very, very uncommon. Definitely, I think only one of these features will be here, so we'll be watching very closely for that. Again, we do upload every single day. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. So be sure to subscribe and tune in daily because we do upload every day, literally. Also, you can hit that bell icon for daily notifications so you never miss an upload. Like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.